Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us this morning or this afternoon, wherever you are. Today, we're going to be talking about transforming non-employee travel, part two. We actually did a similar webinar a while back where we talked about non-employee travel. We talked about reducing transaction costs and automating payment reconciliation. Today, we're going to go a little bit deeper and we're going to talk about how organizations transform non-employee travel through automation, virtual payments, integrated workflows, and additionally, we'll also be talking about how to increase efficiency across booking and back office processes. Today, we are joined by Rob Erickson, co-founder, president, and CEO of SureWare, and my fellow colleague Mike
Mhm.
Duffy, head of product and innovation at Grasp Technologies.
Great. Thank you, Peter. Let's talk about, one of the fastest growing and, most complex, the areas of corporate travel, and that's the non-employee travel. So, first, if there's a cost to servicing. Most companies don't have a streamlined way to manage, guest travel, candidates, contractors, partners. That there's different underlying terms for them, but because of that, the servicing of those travelers is far more manual than it should be. And that leads to, the direct challenge, rather, of low levels of online adoption and self-service. And in some cases, depending on your infrastructure, online may not even be an option for your non-employee travel. Most non-employee bookings still flow through, email, phone, spreadsheets, very disconnected tools. And when you lack that self-service, you end up exactly what buyers are seeing today, which is, higher operational costs, higher transaction fees. And the core objective is pretty clear, improve that non-employee travel inefficiency or efficiency rather than adding more headcount or more systems to manage. And just, let's talk a little bit on that. What would that return on investment kind of look like? What does that, mean? What does that mean in terms of shift from operational pain to a business impact? When online adoption is increased and self-service, you'll begin to realize, reducing costs and improving service. There's fewer manual touch points, fewer exceptions, fewer workarounds. So there's end-to-end efficiency. So when you have a hotel booking, billing, reconciliation, when they're all connected from a moment a reservation is made right to the final close, you eliminate a lot of the duplicated effort. You reduce cycle time and you improve the accuracy as well. And one of the strongest examples that we've had is a top case study with Disney, where they've modernized the non-employee hotel payments and the reconciliation that they managed, where they were able to save over 2 million annually and achieved a 90% reduction in their reconciliation errors. And Rob, if you can, tell us a little bit more on how that came to be.
Sure. That's great. Thanks, Mike. Um, from a SureWare perspective, we describe ourselves as working at the front end of corporate travel. Where for the past 20 years, we've applied our expertise around integrating with HR systems, integrating with corporate payments systems, personal profile data and travel policy, and then we put that data in motion to integrate with TMCs, GDS systems, online booking solutions. Today, as teed up for you, we're going to talk about one feature of what we tackle, and that's guest travel. We'll talk about that, and then we're going to talk also about, in our collaboration with Grasp, how we use virtual pay as an enabler in the process. As Mike was saying, the number one when we're working with corporations, it's about return on investment, and it's two key areas. It's real straightforward. How can we get more online adoption on the guest travel process, and how can we streamline non-employee travel activities from the point of booking through to back-end settlement. Now we look at our solution. There's four key elements. The first element is we look to get non-employees profiled and integrated. So we create, the one aspect of our solution is we provide an Azure app service, a simple user interface to manage profile workflows. And we see, not one size fits all for all types of guests and non-employees. So we've created a range of workflows either through self-registration, by bookers getting guests profiled, or by an employee sponsor. So right up front, getting them profiled. The next element number 2, is getting them integrated. We use our expertise and this is really a key point. We're not a new booking engine that we're introducing, but we're integrating with our customers' current framework, current partners, all with the goal of trying to drive guest travel into the lowest cost of distribution. So it's typically online adoption with your online solution. So we'll set up a synchronization to your online solution. It's also important that we integrate with your TMC partner. So if a guest or non-employee needs to be picked up, the profile is there for easy agent servicing. And then we'll also look at the framework of how can we use different workflows and single sign-on to create efficiencies and make it easy to book. Now, an illustration of that, an example. This is an example of a non-employee that is given user rights, and I'm going to use Concur as a case study. Has user rights to book travel themselves. So we'll control all the authentication of the guests. They'll self-register. Once they self-register, update their travel name, for an example. We present an airplane icon that they would just click in. And in this case study, they go directly into Concur and make a reservation. So for that guest, we're controlling all the authentication, segment them from your corporate employees, but giving them a seamless single sign-on in to go in and make a reservation. Now, another approach that I talked about is also bookers. And then bookers, we give similar workflow options where they would get a list of all of their non-employees or guests that they're managing specifically, and then giving workflows in our user app where they can select that airplane icon. And again, using the case study of Concur, they would go directly into Concur, be as if they were that non-employee, and make a reservation. So we have the person profiled. The booker can profile the guest, synchronizes into Concur, and then they simply emulate in and make a reservation. So quick several steps to get that online adoption. Now, along with getting them profiled and integrated, the third element of our approach is getting the necessary financial tracking associated to that non-employee or guest. So within our framework, there can be an unlimited number of setups. So there could be setups for external auditors that are traveling on behalf of your company. It could be for external law firms, or it could be for recruits coming in, all having some different financial implications on how you want to track those costs. We can set up default quoting by site. That as soon as that person is registered or booking builds a profile, that moves directly into the online solution, moves into the TMC reservation, and all that financial hierarchy associated to that person, and that default moves and follows that reservation. And then with different options that we can create custom fields that bookers can manage some of that financial tracking, or when there's a sponsor creating a guest or managing a non-employee, we can take the financial hierarchy off of that sponsor and then have that flow through to the guests. So that third element is getting that financial tracking that's going to follow that booking made end to end. And then linked to that financial tracking is every one of our steps can have rules-based payment instructions. What we learned over time, form of payment is one of the strongest enablers of good workflows. So we could define it could be a central card for error, whatever the rules are for that particular setup, or it could be able to move into talking about virtual pays next, is that we would set what the rules are, pass those payment instructions into the online solution using Concur as an example. And then either a booker or that guest or non-employee that simply goes in, makes a reservation, and the default form of payment is already set up for them. Keeping it very simple and no key decisions need to be made around form of payment. Now, virtual pay is an option. And I'm just going to walk through a few examples here. But when we're integrating Grass Pay, we'll look at different setups. We'll have an event-driven robot that's running on the guest site, looking for anybody that's entitled to using a virtual card for, I'm going to use an example here for hotel payment. As soon as that person is created and we detect that they have the right either custom field or could be a rule class, we automatically kick off an integration with Grasp that creates a virtual card and puts it into that guest profile. And then we seamlessly, in this example here, would synchronize that virtual card into Concur. It's sitting there as a default form of payment. Either the booker or the end user goes through and starts making the reservation. And in that reservation, they just simply select the default form of payment and complete the reservation. And then if this is a non-employee that's traveling routinely, we'll have rules that can remove that card, place another virtual card in there, sitting there available for the next reservation. So a real seamless process. Again, a key part of what we tackle is try to work with your existing framework of online solutions, your TMC, get the non-employee traveler profiled, and define the form of payment rules to make it very simple to get online adoption or for an agent to handle that seamlessly. So with that, kind of the next part of using that virtual payment in that dynamic way is to keep driving that to end-to-end reconciliation and settlement, and I'll pass it on to Mike to describe the back end process.
Yeah, thank you, Rob. In terms of the rec, the data is really important, and in the OBT, it's common to configure the file finishing or custom fields to capture trip specific information, during the booking process. And all that can flow to the rec. So that means all the segment information plus up to 99 additional reporting fields. And if any changes happen to the reservation, that automatically also gets updated. So, if the traveler calls back and say they want to extend their stay, the payment is updated accordingly for those additional funds needed for those extra nights. And the rec is 100% automated completely because we married the card to the booking. It's one-to-one. So it makes it very easy for the reconciliation. And with the data, you'll get full reporting on the activity. So one can slice and dice on the hotel spend graphs and analysis. But the item of most interest for in practice is that rec. And so right now I have this in PowerPoint. I'm going to flip over to Excel for a moment so we can see in more of a granular detail what that looks like. And so this is a sample rec file. You would expect to see, some of this data here, like a traveler name, and then, maybe a confirmation number, but we're capturing a lot more data. So if there is an employee number that will be, present, we capture the, estimate from the GDS at time of booking. When the travel is completed, this field here, this column gets populated. So with the actual charge, because we know that in practice, there could be a calculation difference on taxes from the GDS, or like I just said moments ago, maybe the traveler called back in and they've extended their stay, and so the values would be possibly the same or could be slightly different, but we do get the actual charge that has occurred on the card when it does happen. We captured the details on the hotel and the instructions, and the instructions can vary. As Rob mentioned earlier, it can be determined by rule class. Sometimes a rule class may have room and tax only for certain groups of travelers, and maybe the others would have room tax parking, etc. So that's all can be automated through that rule class. And we capture the hotel name in kind of a, and I guess one could say redundant way, because we have the hotel name from the GDS as well as from the bank, from the credit card. And that's intentional because sometimes the individual looking at a rec could be someone in travel, could be a travel manager, in which case, the GDS would be more familiar to them, or it could be someone from finance accounting, and they're more accustomed to seeing the bank statement. So we want to make sure that we're providing as much data as possible. And as I scroll over a little further, we're seeing, hotel address, check in, check out. And here we have these 99 fields. In this example, I only have a small portion of them, but this is any data that's captured either from the profile or during the booking flow. And so that could be, this looks like an airport code here. This could be a cost center of some sort. Anything that's automatic, anything that's being captured during that booking flow is in the rec. And so that's very powerful in terms of cost allocation and assigning those costs automatically. So really, really powerful tool.
Yeah,
We've all,
Mike,
yeah, go
I'd
ahead,
like to just add one thing to
please.
that. This was really a key driver in our case study that Mike mentioned with Disney. When we started our project with them, they had over 100 BTA cards, ghost type of cards for hotel. And they'd broken it out that way primarily for back-end settlement, tracking it financially. When I talked earlier about capturing all that financial hierarchy, so at Disney, depending on the setup, we were capturing, filling all the financial hierarchy that would replace all what they were having on those separate BTAs. All of that flows into the GRASP reconciliation, and we took the majority of those 100 BTAs and put it into one virtual pay account that's fully reconciled and allocated based on this reconciliation. So a key part of the efficiencies that we drove, drove the data from the front end, and then the reconciliation was very powerful to do their financial allocations of all guest activities.
Great. And so the reconciliation, that's capturing of the data, but also steps in between, during the booking flow, the communication of the hotel is quite important. And, that has been historically a challenge early days of virtual card, having that billing letter or authorization form and having that information downstream. And so the legacy workflow has been, faxes, moved on to email, but we've also indicated a way to have that on the booking in the GDS, which will transmit to the hotel CRS and finally into the hotel property management system. So that means, the card instructions like the room tax parking, that's already at the fingertips of the front desk. They don't have to go into another system to look for that information. And this is something we pioneered in testing in collaboration with both Disney and Marriott. But we've expanded that to all the major chains. And in fact, for the last 3 years, we've been applying this workflow for all bookings. And so what does that kind of look like? I'm kind of showing a very, what would seem very antiquated screen, but this is a typical property management system. And so you can see here in the notes that it is indicating this is room tax and parking. I know this one happens to be a Marriott screen because it is indicating another little piece of information more for the hotel and their reporting purposes to indicate that this is a virtual card. But that information is automatically and instantly transmitted once the booking occurs. So that has helped a lot in terms of the hotel having that awareness, hey, this is a virtual card and this is what's going to be applied for that. And so just thinking, from the lens, a couple different lenses, I'll talk about the corporate first. So we enabled those virtual cards to be issued at an individual guest profile level. So the built-in identifiers like project codes, cost centers, job roles, those are all applied. And so for every non-employee, they have a purpose-built payment directly tied to their trip. That reconciliation is automated, and as I mentioned, showed there, 99 unique identifiers beyond just the segment information itself. And to me, I think what one of the key pieces too is that there's no change to the guest experience in that they book the same way as they would today. If they wanted to do it on a desktop or if they want to do it on a mobile, it's exactly the same as they would today, and the virtual card just happens to flow automatically in the background for them. For the TMC partner, it the same, very similar, in terms if they had to, call for an agent and an agent that happens to be involved, the TMC, it really doesn't have to do any additional work. In some cases, the agent may not even know there's a virtual card being applied because it's all done in the background. And it does work for instant purchase items like air, NDC, low-cost carriers. So the virtual card just drops into a profile or a profile created from a non-employee, and that agent simply does the booking just like they would for any other travel. So they don't have to go through any additional training or anything like that in order to provision those virtual cards. We do it all in the background. And that's a wrap on the content of the session. Peter, over to you. I think we might be opening up for some questions.
Yeah. Firstly, thank you guys for your time and for giving us all that information. And yeah, we will be opening up for questions to the audience. There is a Q&A box. If you have any questions, please go ahead and plug it in there, and we will try to answer them to the best of our ability. Okay. Okay, cool. First question, do you guys offer a booking solution?
Good question. Um, we're not, from a SureWare perspective and grasp, we're not we don't introduce a new online or booking solution. Our goal is to work within your existing framework, work with your existing partners, or maybe it's another new emerging solution that our customer would like us to integrate with. So it's not a new booking solution that we work with. Bookers would work with an environment that they're familiar with. An agent would work with an environment that they're familiar with, and that's really a key part of our strategy. Is we don't look to be a new online solution. We look to be an enabler with workflow and virtual pay.
Great. Great. Thank you, Rob. And this next question, uh, sort of similar, sort of related. You referenced a case study with Concur. Do you integrate with any other booking solutions other than Concur?
Yeah, in terms of our virtual pay solution, it would work with any other online solution that we have integrated in our platform. For example, Deem, Get There, Circle, Certify, whoever we're integrated, it's pretty much a seamless exercise because we're just using the profile as a vehicle for integration. So it's a very simple integration, and anybody that we have in our platform, I just gave those examples. Um, or we could do an integration specifically, if there's a new merging solution that we can use the profile as a vehicle. Very effective. So really back to your question, Peter, all the mainline online solutions would be available in our solution as well.
Great. Great. And looks like we have one more. Which banks do you work with?
I can take that one. In terms of the banks we work with, there's too many to just list. So we have roughly, I think, 92 banks, and so it's kind of similar to, as Rob mentioned, with the online booking tool, where we'll work with the bank that you work with today. So that could be, the one for the TMC or the corporate. But we do have 92 banks that we have integrations with. So we're likely have your bank that you don't currently bank with, and we can provision virtual cards from that.
Awesome. Thank you, Mike. And thank you, Rob. I think that that does it for the questions. Thank you both for taking the time to do this. Yeah, any last remarks?
No, well, thanks for having us. If there's anyone has any questions, feel free to reach out to me or Rob. Happy to answer any questions.
Yep, agreed.
Awesome.
Yep. Yeah. Thank you, Peter, for organizing this, and thank you for giving your time today. Appreciate it.
Awesome. And
Right.
thank you to everyone who joined us. We will see you at the next webinar.
And happy holidays.
Happy
All right.
holidays. That's
Yeah. Happy
right.
holidays.
All
Okay, bye
right.
now.
Goodbye, all.